I'm Bill Corcoran Jr., and I'm your host for the On the Stacks podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Jeff Kátra, Customer Success Manager at Impact. What's up, podcast? Episode 37. Welcome to the On the Stacks podcast. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing well, Bill. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Thanks again for coming today. You brought your beard along with you.
Yeah, I'm surprised it fits in the frame. Oh wait, we're not on video. Good. Yeah, I don't think there's a room big enough for it.
Hopefully Darren got it in on the photos.
I think he brought his ultra wide angle. He said, "You're gonna need it."
He had to get your beard in.
It's funny. We'll talk about the beard some more with my previous two jobs, and which were both remote, and how it's become a staple of Zoom calls. It's kind of embarrassing, but then again, I'm just going to embrace it because that's me, and it's pretty funny though. I have some funny stories about it.
Well, Jeff has an awesome beard. How big is the beard?
Too big.
Have you measured it? That sounds a little weird.
I have not, but I always get the question, how long you been growing it for? I'm like, there's no timeline because I'm always like trimming it. I mean, it's easily, we're going on a foot long.
I was going to say, so you can't say that's 2 years worth of beard growing.
No, there's no time anymore. And I think everybody can embrace the no time with COVID and working from home because the concept of time is kind of just completely slowed down.
It's been 20 years in the last 6 months.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, we're going to talk a little bit about work from home and what you do. But before we get into that, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background before you started at Impact and kind of how you got where you are today? Tell me about some of your past experiences. For
sure. I think where it all started, and it's interesting because I tell people this story because it's really how I found myself. And that was in college. And prior to going to college, I had no intentions on going to college. I was going to go into the military, was going to go through ROTC and be a police officer and go into the military, and I was going to retire with 2 pensions. I had this real concrete thing I was going to do, and it didn't involve homework anymore, which I was not into. I mean, I did well in school, well enough. I wasn't valedictorian or anything like that, but I did well in school, enjoyed school. I just didn't really enjoy homework and really doing that kind of thing. I really wanted to get into the real world, get my hands dirty. I come from a blue collar background, so we'll get into this. I'm first generation college grad in my family, so I really wanted to get my hands dirty. And then 3 months before I started at King's College back in 2007, my mother was an employee there, and they had a tuition program, but it was pretty much pennies on the dollar they would pay for your tuition. They revamped it right before I went to school, and they're like, "You can go to school for free."
So I was like, "Shit, sign me up."
And I wasn't like that. My father sat me down and said, "Listen, you don't get many opportunities to get an education for free. In fact, not many people ever. And then there's people that work very hard during high school and during their studies to get to that point, and you're getting it for free." And for once, I listened to my father, which I don't do very often. Well, these days I do, but back then, not very often.
Yeah, what kid did, right?
I was very rebellious in that sense. But he put it into perspective. I get a chance to do what I want for free, or at least try to. And so I started at King's, I was going to be a history teacher because, I thought about criminal justice, and then I really put it in perspective. I'm like, dangerous job, dangerous career. It wasn't really my style, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just picked something and ended up being secondary education. And at that point, just doing your basic classes, and I ended up taking a mass communications class with graphic design. And that was the one class that I excelled in. It was just that whole marketing and advertising kind of field really just clicked with me. And I decided to switch my major 2.5 years into school, which ended up putting me on the 5-year track to graduate from King's. But that decision of going into graphic design, going into marketing and business, that's what I wanted to do.
So what was your major then? What did you switch to? Was it just graphic design?
Communications and marketing I graduated with.
Okay.
And that led me into marketing itself. So communications degree, which it's a bachelor's in the arts degree, pretty applicable to that. I didn't have a direct marketing degree. I had the communications degree with a focus in marketing. And then it led me to summarize those at that point in my career, I went through a couple of different marketing jobs that I didn't really like. It was between, I did it for a local business. I did it for a little agency. We actually had a startup right out of college called Cocoon. And we ended up doing the NEPA business plan competition.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and we did that for a year, and I didn't really find what I wanted to do. And then I ended up at Pepper Jam doing agency work. Really focused in paid social media, so kind of stemming off what I did at Cocoon, which was paid social management in a sort of agency setting, but Pepper Jam was very formal, very enterprise, managing big businesses. But it was very associated with the affiliate marketing as well. And I found myself really liking the client-facing work. I loved it kind of puts you on an edge. Every time you got into a meeting with a client, it was the preparation and kind of that little bit of nervousness. And then when you're done with the meeting and you saw the smile on your client's face and you were able to deliver the results, there was something, that rush that you get doing client work. And that's where I've been since. I was at Pepper Jam for 3.5 years. Wow, I don't even remember how long. It was quite a long time. And I ended up taking about a year off between Pepper Jam and when I came to Acceleration Partners, which was a very affiliate-focused agency. And then we'll segue into how the work from home
got started.
Because they were fully work from home, which is 2.5 years ago unheard of for any kind of business that functions at that level. But
and what do you mean? What do you mean by functions at that level? Like,
so you would think.
Tell me a little bit more.
Absolutely. When I heard about Acceleration Partners, not going to lie, I thought it was like a pyramid scheme. They're like, it's an affiliate agency that they're fully remote. You can work from anywhere in the country. And I was like,
this is too good to be true.
I'm like, no, that's not real. That's a pyramid scheme. That's not so it was between these two jobs because I ended up going through, this was Pepper Jam went through some downsizing and I ended up being part of the attrition. So I ended up getting laid off. So I took I was over it. It was over marketing. I was just over that kind of thing. I was like, I'm going to find what I want to do and I didn't want to leave the area. I've considered leaving the area a million different times, but I've kind of embraced that. I don't really want to go. I want to be able to build my career and what I want to do and still enjoy the seasons. I mean, except the winter because I find I don't ski anymore, but we won't go on a tangent. I really wanted to stay in this area because my family's here, and at least for now, that's really what I wanted to do. But my career is a big city career. All the jobs in my field are required to even Allentown at the worst, Philly, and then you're getting into New York City, which I love going to New York City. But I like visiting New York City. I don't I couldn't imagine living. I grew up on a 30-acre farm.
I was going to say, you're from Tunkhannock, right?
Yeah. So right between, the Tunkhannock, Dallas area. My parents had 30 acres growing up. We barely had internet growing up. I lived outside. There's no way I can move to a $2,000 a month, 200 square foot apartment. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And so I was between a rock and a hard place. I'm like, what do I do? How do I transition into this next step, but still be able to have the salary and the benefits and the things that I need to survive and to have a house and a family eventually and really set up that pillar for the next step in life. And I heard about Acceleration Partners through passing. I'm like, this is a pyramid scheme. There's no way this is true. And I didn't even consider it, which didn't even look into them. I was like, there's no way that's true.
Did somebody tell you about it? Or
yes. So it was a former colleague from Pepper Jam who heard about Acceleration Partners. They interviewed, it didn't work out. And I was like, well, it just didn't seem legitimate. Until one day I was not in a desperate mode, but I'm like, I need to make a change. I need to get back into marketing. I need to do what I'm good at. I need to be in that client-facing role and really take that next step instead of sitting idle. And it's really easy to sit idle, especially when you're sitting at home, which we'll get into, even when you're working for a high-functioning company. And Acceleration Part, I went all in. And an old colleague from mine told me about the company, and they told me about the clients they manage. I was like, wait, this isn't...
What type of clients?
So they manage enterprise clients. We're talking the Ubers, the Lyfts, the Apples of the world, big time Fortune 500 clients. That's going back to like a high functioning company who's fully remote, which still to this day, I mean, I really commend them and they're an amazing company. They're absolutely incredible. they are able to build that from the ground up, a fully functioning, and I think at this point, 130, 140 employees managing these clients in an infrastructure across a global company.
All from home.
Managing, yeah. And this is in Germany. This is in London. This is in the Asian Pacific areas. This is in Australia. This is global. They're managing clients across the entire globe from home.
That's crazy.
Across time zones. And it was incredible. I mean, and that's really, I committed to, I'm like, I'm going to apply. I'm going to reach out to my network. I'm really going to commit to diving back in. And I dove back in, and I mean, I'm still in the industry. I'm kind of shifted over to the technology platform and Impact. So I'm no longer in an agency setting, but I'm still very client facing, and I'm still very involved in that specific industry, managing partnerships and affiliate partnerships. But now I've kind of segued more into the technology versus the agency side.
So with Acceleration Partners, that was your first work from home role, right? Like, how did you feel about, once you said like, hey, I got to make a change. I'm going to do this. I'm serious about this job now. And then you got the job, and then now you're working from home. Like, how did that go?
I was like, yeah, I can work from my pajamas. Oh, and we'll talk about the pajama. I deem it the pajama effect. But I tried telling my parents and my family, and they're like,
what are you doing?
They're like, is that a pyramid scheme? not literally, but they gave me the look. They're like, wait, they don't pay like $10 an hour, do they? I'm like, this is a real job, Mom, Dad. This is a real thing. Like, this is what I did at Pepper Jam. This is a step forward. This is an amazing opportunity, and I get to do it from home. And once the reality hit in, I thought about all my mind went to the negative spot. I'm like, oh, well, am I going to get distracted, or how do I communicate, or how do I do this? I just didn't know what was going to happen. So I shifted my mindset, and I'm going to embrace it, and this company has to have it figured out. They're managing these amazing clients. They're putting me on their key accounts team. They have to have a system in place in order to make this work.
For you to be successful.
Mm-hmm. And it was, for the lack of a better term, it's like, holy shit. This is real. This is a high functioning company. I'm working from home. This is what I'm doing now. Working from the couch, basically, or working from my pseudo office, which has since transformed into like a real office.
I was going to say, I mean, when you first started, I mean, was it 3 years ago that you were fully work from home?
Yeah, I've been working remote for 3. Yeah, it'll be 3 years in January. Been fully remote.
So I'm sure like your office setting, I'm doing finger quotes right now, office setting, has probably changed quite a bit from then till now. And I'm sure probably your habits and your tasks and communication and, all that has probably changed quite a bit. So I mean, what was it like your first couple of weeks? Were you like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, or training? Did you love it?
Training sessions in sweatpants. That was the first 3 weeks. I was like, this is great.
Sitting on the couch.
Waking up. Well, the first couple weeks I was like so psyched up. I couldn't even I was like, oh, I could sleep till 8:15 and shower and make breakfast and be early to work. This is crazy.
You don't have to go anywhere.
I don't have to go anywhere. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And at that point I was waking, like previous jobs, you're waking up early. I wasn't eating breakfast. There was no breakfast involved whatsoever. It was just wake up, do my routine, get my coffee, and go to work. I like to be at work 10 minutes early, 15 minutes. I like to be a little bit early. I've always lived by
You were early today.
I was 15 minutes early.
You were, yeah.
15. To me, 15 minutes early. If you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. And that's super cliche, but I just like being early because you're not stressed. Like you're not going into something stressed.
Yep.
And like I stress all the time. Like stress is something that I'm really learning to manage, and I could talk about sort of the ebbs and flows of working from home and going through different changes, but
yeah,
that was the thing. Like if you're early, that's automatically you're setting the precedent that you're early, and your mind's going to be in a good spot to decompress and move forward. But the working from home environment, it evolved from just being a tabletop with nothing on it, no decorations. I didn't even have a notebook.
So just like sitting at your kitchen table, basically, with a laptop.
Fundamentally, I was sitting at a piece of wood with nothing on it and just a blank slate. and no like organization or purpose or sticky notes, but I was focused.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the nice thing was I was home by myself. It was quiet. Didn't have the puppy at this time. So I was able to focus, and I was really able to take in everything and take in all the information and learn the processes and the overall system of how this company operates and gets they called it GSD, get shit done time.
I like
at
that.
work. They figured it out and how to do this, and all these employees and managers and directors to work that whole chain of command, both laterally across clients and up the chain and internally. And it was, so me, I was just a sponge for the first 3 months, I would say I was a sponge.
Wow. And then you're like, I got the hang of this. I think I can do this, or?
Ebbs and flows. I'll keep coming back to that. Yes, until it was like client time. Like, well, here's your portfolio, which was Target, a Fortune 500. I was like, Target.
A little intimidating.
I was like, okay, what do I have to do? And they're like, well, here's a spreadsheet of your broken out tasks. Here's when they need to be done. Here's the communication flow. And I was like, this is literally everything I need. And there was like a transition plan. So they gave me all these cheat sheets of,
wow.
They had like all the transitions were in place because you couldn't just sit next to your buddy at their desk and watch them do their work. So they had these transition plans, and they had this workflow of, here's the keys to everything you need. We're obviously going to be there to help you, but they really expected you to be proactive and dive in. It's figure it out. Like,
yeah,
just you'll figure it out.
So for those listening that probably, some people may not know or understand, you say agency work and affiliate marketing, maybe just, in a minute or so, just kind of explain like exactly what that is and like what your role was, and kind of like your day to day, like what exactly did you do? You know what I mean? Like what was your, like what were some of the tasks you talk about? They give you a list of tasks, right? Like what did you do?
So I'll start with just the core of what affiliate marketing is in a traditional sense. And really it's more so about like partnerships and partnership marketing, which is really at Impact, that's what they push. It's the traditional affiliate sense. And for somebody who's never seen it before, if you read an article about your favorite shoes and you see that there's a link for you to go buy them on Amazon and you buy them, when you purchase through that link, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be affiliate code on it. And the client, the customer, who's the brand, is going to get a commission. The person who linked you to it, which could be Forbes, it could be shoeblog.com, it could be something very specific.
Could be on the
They're
stacks.
going to get a credit for it. It could be on the stacks. And it'll also, the platform, the technology will get a credit for it in some sense. So everyone's sharing the credit. It's really about legitimacy and partnerships. So it's evolved from, yes, the Groupon and all the coupon sites are the same thing. They are technically an affiliate as well, but it's more so, and 9 times out of 10, we're not really clicking on that unless we want a discount. We want legitimacy. We want that.
And it's not a pyramid scheme.
It's not a pyramid scheme.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want a referral. You want somebody, a source that you trust. And that's really where the contents come in. You visit a certain blog to read about, if you're into video games, if you're into beer, if you're into certain things, you go to that source of information.
Because you trust it.
Yeah. And when you click the link and you purchase through it, that you're supporting them. And like, that's the thing. It's a support network. It's a referral program. It's really building, it's a trusted source. And like I'm a big YouTube content. I watch YouTube daily. I even have a YouTube premium account. I committed. And I will support the brand. If they're selling something on their account that I need, if it's a link below, I will make sure I'll proactively go out of my way to purchase that because I know that supports them. Then they can make better videos because if they get the support from their viewership, they're going to create better content. They're going to have better video quality. I mean, it all goes full circle. So you're going to give them a little kickback because the purchase intent's there.
You're going to buy it anyway. So why not support the platform that you're consuming content on anyway?
Exactly. And from my day-to-day standpoint at Acceleration Partners, my job was to really, and it varied between each client, but in a nutshell, my job was to make sure that the partners who were on their program, which ranged from 500 to 10,000 to 20,000 partners, everything was, the stream of information was going through there efficiently. They had the right content that they needed. They had the right support that they needed for the platform. And it's kind of ironic. The platform that I almost exclusively used at Acceleration Partners was Impact. And that's where we managed all the partnerships. So you were able to message partners, you were able to pull reporting, data, analytics. So I was doing a lot of number crunching, a lot of strategic planning, doing quarterly business reviews, and just making sure that we were keeping the lights on for their program, but also figuring out ways for it to become more efficient, ways for it to grow, ways to optimize, ways to get rid of fraud. And there's a lot of fraud with affiliate marketing and partnership marketing because people figured out very complex ways to game the system, get more clicks, get more ad dollars, redirect things. And we won't get really too much into the nitty-gritty there, but my job was to make sure that everything was running efficiently, effectively, and just really keeping the lights on the program.
So is there anything else between, is there anything else that maybe experience or anything else that maybe you learned at Acceleration Partners that kind of helped you lead you to your next role with Impact, and then how did you land the new role at Impact? Like, how did that happen?
So the role in Impact was something that, and my reasoning for leaving Acceleration Partners was nothing other than I just wanted to try something different. So I wanted to preface there that I wanted to move away from more so the really hands-on campaign management and get into technology, like work for a big tech company, which still, like, I've been at Impact for 2 months and I'm still like nervous when I go into work because I'm learning things. Even though I was exclusively, I know the platform pretty well, I've never really seen the back-end inner workings of a technology company and how you manage that side of a client relationship. Now I'm managing things that I don't do the work for the client, but I have to make sure they're doing it correctly. So now I don't have the control to do it myself, but I'm sort of in charge of making sure it's done right and that they're using the tool to the best of their ability. But I always had the interest to want to go to a tech company, but it had to be the right fit. It had to be the right company. It had to be a lot of things. And I interviewed at a few companies prior to COVID. You got to go to Santa Barbara. You got to go to San Francisco, New York City. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll interview, and maybe if they give me the job offer, maybe I'll consider it. And I think just going into that interview, I'm a believer that interview or the person, hiring managers, they can just feel the energy of how your interview is, even though it's over a phone call. And I don't think I was committed because I know I'm not committed because I didn't want to move out of the area, but I figured, oh, maybe if something's going to kick me in the rear end, maybe I'll do it. And it just never happened. It never came to fruition. But I've considered Impact, and I actually applied there twice prior to landing the job. Didn't work out because of prior to COVID-19, they wanted someone on location in New York City.
Okay.
And it just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity came up, and I had no intentions on leaving Acceleration Partners at all, unless it was the right opportunity or like that, at least for me to try the next stepping stone in my career. And long story short, I ended up interviewing. I got the interview at Impact. It was multiple interviews, I think 4 or 5 hour long interviews.
Were they phone, Zoom?
The first one was phone, then the rest were Zoom. So and
you had this beard now.
I embraced the beard for sure. And we can talk about
we got to talk about that beard thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not, I don't necessarily think it was interview friendly.
That's why when you said interview, it just made me think of it,
Yeah, you think well, I did get a haircut like I did today, but I didn't get a haircut for the podcast because there's no video, just to preface. But the whole interview, so with the beard, not to get sidetracked, but we'll take a step back to Acceleration Partners. My first day on the job was the all company call. And usually the CEO will have you introduce yourself and say, oh, tell me something that you wouldn't normally tell me, that we couldn't learn from your resume or your LinkedIn profile.
And was this video?
This was video in front of 120 people that I've never met.
People are already seeing the beard.
Yes. Okay. And the first thing the CEO of the company's like, we talked about the beard for like 2 minutes on a call in front of the whole company.
With how many people?
120 people. And you don't think 2 minutes is a long time, but go on your phone, set your watch to 2 minutes and just sit there. And you're gonna be like, what?
With all eyes on you.
All eyes on me. So it was nerve wracking. But I've learned one of the core values at Acceleration Partners was own it. So just like be yourself, own it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna own it. I mean, if, in a client
You
setting,
do it
like
well.
keep it tidy for the most part and just really own it. And that's what I said going into Impact. I'm like, I'm not going to go into this interview and not be myself. I feel like I don't want to do that. I've done that before in life where you're like, oh, I'm gonna change this or do this and
To try to make them
try,
like
try
it.
to fit the mold.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to own it. And it wasn't even a question.
That's cool.
But it's always on calls. It's still, even at Impact, it always gets brought up on our internal
It's a
call.
good conversation piece.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
look what's happening right now.
Yeah.
You know?
And with clients as well, it's a conversation piece. And I just own it. Like I'm not going to, obviously I'm going to make sure I look presentable during a call.
Because we're ratty looking.
Yeah. Because we're on video for the most part with Zoom and just own it.
That's cool.
And I still live by that philosophy of just owning it.
Yeah.
Just got to do it.
Yeah. So you interviewed with Impact. The beard, they obviously gave you the job, probably just because of the beard.
Probably.
Right?
That's what I don't know if it was my qualifications or just
I
that
think
I'm
it was just the
intimidating on
beard.
Zoom.
Yeah. They're like, we got to hire this guy. He's got a real long beard. You know? So then you landed at Impact, and what happened after that?
So I've been at Impact for about 2 months now, and I'm still in the training mode and really starting to get my bearings there. I found out that, yes, I know a lot about the platform from the client side or like the agency side of managing it. But wow, I don't know the inner workings of how technology communication goes and escalating things internally and really being in charge of, we're tie the revenue. I'm tie the revenue now on like a literal sense where client retention is my responsibility and client, not necessarily upselling, but upselling in that sense. Like I'm sort of in charge of that too. So now I'm taking on this new thing. So I'm trying to be a sponge, trying to make sure I'm learning that aspect. But I've also found that in the conversations I've had with my new clients that I can put myself in their shoes now, which has been really successful for kicking off the relationship. And some of the clients that I manage, we're rolling out like a new philosophy at the company where we really want to be proactive and strategic, and we want to really be that voice and tell the client how to guide themselves to success. And it's great because I've been in unsuccessful situations in their shoes and successful situations and worked to inner problems. And so I could put myself in their shoes and relate, which is to this point has been extreme advantage on my end. And I'm really happy that I can think how they think, and I kind of know how it feels to have fraudulent partners or have something go wrong with the platform and you feel stuck.
Yeah. And, now that, you're at Impact, you've been there for a couple months and you're kind of just still getting your feet wet, but you have this work from home thing down to a science, I would imagine at this point in your life. And, it kind of all, I think, comes at good timing for you, as the world right now, with this whole COVID-19 thing. I mean, a lot of people are working from home. So, what's your experience been like working from home? What are maybe let's talk a little bit about, challenges, tips and tricks.
Yes. This is what I came here to talk about today, because I have a ton of things to talk about versus like the main challenges, some of the tools that I've used both company-wide and both like just personally to really manage that workflow. Working from home is definitely a shock for anyone. And I'm sure that a lot of the members of the professional community, at least who are listening, have probably made it past that first real like depressing, dark, like not depressing or dark, but like that I'm like, wow, working from home isn't a honeymoon. There's a lot of challenges. And like, I think because I figured when I started at Acceleration Partners, it wasn't until like the first 6 months where I hit that first dip and like, whoa, I need to really like, I can't be working on this piece of wood anymore. I need to get like a better desk. I need a monitor. I need sticky notes. I need some way to like I need to get my stuff organized. I need like a picture of my fiance on the desk. Like I need something to like, I need to make this my own.
Yeah. So like, where does someone start?
Wow. You need to start with buying a desk and a nice chair. And the reason I say a nice chair is because it's like your bed. You spend I don't know that it's 80% or 70% of your life in sleeping.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on those metrics because I don't know them.
Yeah, but it's a lot.
You want to invest in a good mattress. Same thing with a chair. Invest in a good desk and a chair because you're going to be sitting in that chair for 8+ hours every single day for the rest of your life. So invest in a good chair, have a good workspace, and personalize it. And I think that's really where I started, is that, well, once I hit that first, like the honeymoon phase was over, and I have some notes here too. I wanted to cover around like actual, like the nitty gritty of organization, prioritization, like creating barriers, but really set yourself up with your personal space. Personalize your workspace. Put some family photos up. Get some little desk ornaments like my Japanese toy here, or something to just like take your mind off work. And the great thing about working from home is if you move desks at work, you got to pick up all your stuff, but your stuff's home. Like you can actually make it yours, and it is yours, and it's always going to be yours. So if you're not working from home, you're still going to have that space to come home to. And if you have to do some personal stuff, or if you just want to surf the internet, like you have your desk there. So start there, get a good chair, get a standing desk or whatever is going to make you happy. I'm not big into standing desks, so I invested in a nice chair. But I know some people like to sit on stools, or just make it your own and really personalize that space. And in terms of the space, I think the next step too, and this is probably the most important, and this is one I completely failed at in the beginning, was creating the boundaries and the barriers. So now work has come into your home. And when you first start, you're like, I'm at home. But then you realize you're at work. And that's sort of the first, like, not depressing moment, but the first like reality check. You're like, wow, 3 months have went by, and like, I'm working from the patio furniture. I'm working from the couch.
Moving all around the house.
I'm working from the chair that I decompress in every night. And all of a sudden, you find yourself, you'll sit in the chair even if you're not working, and you're like, oh, I kind of feel like I'm at work.
Or and like you got to work.
Yeah, exactly. So you feel like you have to work, that's like the aha moment. I was doing that, and I'm like, oh man.
Can't do this.
I don't want to be at my couch anymore, where I like to hang out at night with my fiance, or like this is where I like to watch YouTube or football. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. This is like a dark moment. That's where the boundaries come in. So it's not only literal boundaries, but also just like, for the lack of a better term, I'm trying to think of setting actual time boundaries too. So my thing was, I wasn't doing that. I was working from wherever I felt like it. I had a desk, wasn't really personalized. I had just a bunch of junk on it. Had like whatever I could stack on it was there. And I could shove my laptop in there and I could work for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And then I realized this is not working. I'm not, like, I was productive, but I felt like I was falling off the cliff. Like I was things were blurring. So that's when I was like, I'm going to get serious about boundaries. I'm only going to work from my desk unless it's a Friday, unless I'm like just doing decompressed stuff for maybe an hour. And I just wanted to go on the couch at 4 o'clock on a Friday, just go through my calendar and like make a to-do list for Monday. So I'd only keep that. That's the only time I'd ever work from the couch, and just make sure that I'm not blending or blurring the lines. And also too, with time, I was only expected to work from 9 to 5. But we know how these kind of careers are. Sometimes you're working at 5:30. Sometimes you're logging on early. I wouldn't do that more so than I would in the office. So I was like, I'm going to work from 9. I'm going to log on at actually 8:45, and I would mostly be done around 4:45. But I would stay logged in until 5 o'clock just in case anything came up. And once 5 o'clock was done, turned off notifications on my phone, my laptop, unless I knew something was important. But I created the barrier, both literally and with technology. I never had email on my phone for work at Acceleration Partners once, which, coming from Pepper Jam, I lived on my phone, always emailing. And even in an office setting, I was like, I'm going to create those boundaries now that I can. Because our leadership at Acceleration Partners really said, you create your schedule and you can create your own demise too. Like we can't help you there. If you want to be the workaholic who works till 7 o'clock, like we're not going to stop you. So you have to set the personal boundaries. And I think it's a big thing too. And also to speak on the boundaries for those who have kids at home or who have distractions or you have loud neighbors or like
that's tough, especially with the kids now. No school.
And I don't have any children, but I've worked with a lot of colleagues who have.
But you have a dog that's probably barking.
Yeah, well, my dog doesn't bark somehow.
Well trained.
No, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
She's just her breed. But she does annoy me a lot. And really, so for those who have children out there, I think you need to have those boundaries be literal too. And whether that's, for me, the indicator that I'm working, my headphones are on. Invest in a good pair of noise canceling headphones. Get a pair of AirPods. Get something. So when my fiance comes down, she sees that my headphones are on.
Don't bother me.
She knows exactly what that means. That means, hey, I'm on a call. I probably have you muted until you walk by. Like, that's it. If my headphones are in, that means no, there's no questions. Like, I'm working. In. And yeah, younger children might not be too receptive to it, but it's worth creating that barrier. And when the kids know the headphones are on, it means don't bother mommy or daddy. We're working. So create those literal barriers like that too. And I think too is having any sort of, you can use anything as a do not disturb. Just have that boundary set with both your husband or your wife, your kids, your boyfriend, girlfriend. Just establish that and be clear. And with your boss as well. Say, hey, set the expectations. Because if the expectations aren't set, they're going to set themselves. And once they're set, it's really hard to backtrack from there. Talk to your boss if you're fully remote and say, hey, my kids don't go to daycare until 10 or they don't do this. And like, I might have to work from 10 to 6. Is that okay? And if in most cases in high functioning or the professional settings, that's going to be okay. So, but if you don't say that and you're going on calls at 9 o'clock and your kids are yelling and your boss doesn't know what's going on, like they don't know if they don't know. So kind of let them know and establish technological, literal barriers. Just set that up for yourself, because if you don't, you're going to find that the lines get blurred and it's going to be stressful. Yeah.
So, you clearly, you have a great knowledge of this work from home. You've done it all, it sounds like. And how have you learned these things? Was it just you figuring it out, trial and error, or are there any books or anything that, technology apps or, what is it that helped you learn how to do all this?
Acceleration partners. I can thank them for, if I went from, and I really commend those who are now just working from home, like just thrown into this from COVID-19. God bless, because I would say 9 out of 10 companies, they're not remote. So they didn't have the infrastructure in place. You're kind of just floating out there, or maybe they did figure, maybe they hired an agency or someone to come in and like teach you how to work from home. Or I'm sure there's consultants for working from home now. Somebody's got to monetize this.
Yeah,
but
somebody's got to figure it out.
Maybe we should.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I got enough to monetize right now. But I think the Acceleration Partners was the key there. And it was really the processes. And they had all this stuff, like all this literature and information, and they used different tools. And I'm going to get into that nitty gritty, because once you have your space, you have your plan. Now you're going to have to figure out, how am I going to organize? How am I going to prioritize? How am I going to communicate? And communication is really tough, because you're not seeing people's faces. You're not hearing them. Sometimes you're using tools like Slack, or you're using email. So now tone of voice isn't there. So things get misconstrued and communication is tough. And you're also, I'll actually get into this after those parts, but I think the organization and prioritization is the first thing I wanted to jump into in terms of like your actual workflow, because it's really easy it's much easier to work when you're just busy. Everyone's busy when you're at work, because you're just trying to, even if you don't have anything to do, you're going to find something to do. And I'm not really into the busy lifestyle. And there's some benefits of working from home if you have a good plan and a good way to organize and prioritize. You can actually create more time for yourself. So you're not working 8 hours just to work 8 hours, but everything that you would normally get done in 8 hours is done anyways. And I think that's one key benefit to focus on after you figure out all the ways to get all your other organizations set and your priorities in place, there's some benefits that come out of it. And there's ways to have, it's not it's not work-life balance anymore. It's work-life integration. That's where we're transitioning into this society that you're going to integrate work into your life, and there's ways to do it effectively. And everyone, your boss and their boss, are still going to be just as happy, but you can create more time for yourself. And it sounds crazy, but it's possible. And to start with organization, I think other than the personalizing and using the kind of tools, the tools that we use at Acceleration Partners and currently use at Impact I use Asana, which is a task management tool. I think you can get an account for free. You can collaborate and you can prioritize. It's really task oriented. And then we use Slack. Slack's communication, other than email. So that's like, hey, that's like patting your buddy on the shoulder when you're at the office.
So it's kind of like an instant messenger.
Exactly. And there's
for
other
those that know what instant messenger is.
Oh my goodness. I still have my screen name, I think. But so Slack and Asana are two tools that we use very commonly. And you can integrate them with each other. And obviously Zoom's a big one too. I used that Acceleration Partners prior to COVID. I mean, that was our main tool and we currently use it at Impact. But when you're trying to organize and prioritize, I think outside of the things you normally do in your job, I think doing a lot of calendar blocking is a big thing, especially working from home. If you usually have, because you're finding the 8 hours to do stuff, but when you block your calendar, that's when you can start chipping away. And I find that, and not so much now, but there was a time where I really had my processes down and I was able to knock out my work in 7 hours. So I was able to take an hour working lunch. I was able to put a load of laundry in. I was able to do that because I figured out how to be efficient. And we worked for a company that really encouraged that. Like we're not going to just make you do one more hour worth of work just because you have an hour left. Like if your priorities are done and they're done timely and they're done accurately, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And like, that's not really how companies operate. You're there for 8 hours. They want you to be busy for
8 hours.
Yeah, you're going to be busy for 8 hours. And I think you're going to find that the whole getting into your priorities and companies are going to become more efficient. And if you're not prepared for that, things are going to move faster. And if you don't have that backbone in place, I think a lot of professionals are going to find themselves burnt out or going to find that the company's moving faster than they can. And I sort of feel that myself. So like when I find myself kind of slipping, I try to go back to the fundamentals of prioritization, which is urgent versus important. And there's like a matrix. Is this important or is this urgent? If it's urgent and important, that should be your number one priority. If it's not important, but it's urgent, then you need to manage expectations with your boss, with your colleagues, with your clients, and really focus on training them to prioritize as well. I can only imagine and this felt easy because our clients knew that we were work from home. They knew like the expectations were set there, but they knew that it didn't feel like that. But I feel now that you're not used to working from home and maybe things are slipping or you're not really tackling the right things, or even if your kids are distracting you, you're going to find that it might create tension. And I like to say the eat the frog. I think it was Mark Twain. Oh, I'm going to be quoted on it now because it's on the podcast. But the eat the frog thing, in a nutshell, the first thing you want to do is eat the frog because it's the worst thing you have to do. And that's the first thing you want to knock out on your priority list. So have that one thing. I used to be a big like tactile, like write notes down. That's why I have this pen here. It's weird when you invest in a nice pen. It's completely unnecessary, especially with the economy. But when you have a nice pen and you have a nice notebook, you find that you gravitate towards it. And it's something like, it's always on your desk. You find it like enjoyable to write things down and just bullet a list. But have that one thing. Have the one thing that you need to get done no matter what the next day. And you find that just having that knocked off your list every day, the frog, I would say, it's going to set yourself up for success. And that goes with your subsequent task as well. If you have a priority list and you put 10 things on a priority list, you roll out of bed, you walk over to work, you walk over to the next room.
Yeah.
Or maybe I know a lot of people who have their desk in their bedroom. Not a recommendation for me. I don't think it's professional in a background when I see someone's bed, but I also think, man, that's your cave. Like you have another room, set it up in like the den or something. Or if you don't have another room, that makes sense. But if you do, try to separate that. But I like sort of lost track of what I was saying. Oh, the priority list.
Yep.
If you put 10 tasks on your list, knowing you're not going to get them done, and you go to work and you only cross off 8, you're already setting yourself up to know like, oh, I didn't hit the mark today. I only got 80% of my stuff done. Even though you knew that you weren't going to get all 10 done. So put 7 on your list, then get 8 done. Then if you have extra time, dig into tomorrow's list. And it sounds really, it's like making your bed in the morning. It's like making your bed in the morning, which, fun fact, I don't do anymore. I should do it, but even just if you start your day off with something tiny like that, it's the little things, the little wins. Make your bed. Oh, I accomplished something first thing in the morning. That's what I did. And then same thing with your task list. I got 7 tasks done. I had 6 on my list. Like I'm getting ahead. And you just keep that same flow every single day. You're going to find that you're going to be more motivated in the morning.
So what about, you brought this Japanese toy, and forgive me, I forget what it's called.
It's a kendama.
Kendama.
Yes, it is so why I have it, I find that in another thing with working from home is it's way easier to not take breaks. Because you feel like you're on the first 6 months, you're like, yeah, I'm on a staycation. I'm on a workcation. Especially the first 6 months.
Yeah.
But it's good to take breaks. You're staring at a computer all day. At least I am. I think most of us in today's day and age are staring at a phone or a computer all day. So you're just beating your eyes up. You're beating your back up. You're beating your neck up. You're just building up all this tension. And then that tension leads to stress, and stress leads to all kinds of things. But the reason I have the kendama on my desk, because I'll just stand up, because you have to stand up to play it. And it requires a little bit of physical movement, but a lot of concentration on it's just a break. So I'll get up, whether it's that or going for a walk or taking the dog for a walk. I'll get up for 5 minutes. I will play with the toy. I'll sit back down, and it's just like a quick reset. My focus is no longer on the screen. I can relax my eyes for a couple minutes, and you know what? It's a little win if I'm able to actually figure out how to get it on the stake. It's just another little win, and it's just like it's like a positive way to get yourself motivated.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, I'm going to spell it. It's Kendama, right?
Yes.
So if anyone's listening and has no clue what it is, they can just quickly Google it and see it.
It's a good fidget toy.
Yeah.
And I'm not super into fidget toys, but the pen that I have, which there's a lot of pens that looks like a click pen, I like it because I can fidget with it. If I'm focusing on something, I just want to de-stress. Not into the spinner. What are they? Fidget spinners?
Yeah, fidget spinner, yeah.
No, I never got into that, but a pen is always like my fidget toy, or the kendama. Just take a break. Kendama's a break toy. Pen's a fidget toy. Just ways for you to kind of not distract yourself, but just to get into the groove, or just get out of the groove for a second. And
God.
I think outside of prioritization, which is huge, and organization, and that's keeping your workspace clean is another tip. It's really easy. I am not the poster child for organization in terms of keeping my desk clean, but I do at least once a week. I should do it daily. I pick everything up off my desk. I might dust it. I might clean the stuff off. And I like to start my week off with a clean desk. It might not end up clean at the end of the week, but it's a good way to kind of close the door on the work week and start fresh. Because I know, you think about it, when you're in your office, in an office setting, and everyone has desks, do you let your desk get crazy? No, because, at least from my experience working in an office, everyone saw my desk every day. My desk drawers were unorganized because no one could see in the drawers, but you don't really want to have that desk with the coffee rings and the old coffee cups. Yeah. Same thing goes for working from home, because you're going to have that mentality and that mindset of, man, my desk is dirty. And you're going to think about it, and it's going to be, it's not, maybe not fester, but unless you're extremely obsessed over things, but it's going to be there, and it shouldn't be there. You should be focused on your work, focused on where you need to be, not in the present, which could be unorganized. Oh, that was a lot to,
that was.
I have more too. And I sort of want to see, I kind of want to flip the script and ask you what was your biggest problem working from home? And I want to see if I can at least relate or kind of give you any tips? I don't know if you've done any working from home since COVID started, or
not a whole lot. So I don't really have a whole lot of experience working from home, but I can tell you that if I did have to work from home, it would probably be a big challenge for me. Because I've been used to forever being in an office, and like what we do here, Corcoran Printing, it's all custom manufacturing, prior to COVID, I mean, I work in outside sales, so like I'm always on the road. So like between that and then now with not as much traveling now, I mean, I'm here, but yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole ton of experience working from home, so I can't really speak too much on it. But as far as all the challenges and everything you said, I mean, now I have the playbook. If I ever did work from home, I've got literally and anyone else listening can take everything you said and it's a playbook, man, from work from home success right here.
So you haven't worked much from home, but have you found that, and we'll jump into like my next little piece here, which is communication. Do you find that as an outside salesman, do you find that the way you communicate with your potential clients, has that shifted to a digital format? Have you and what challenges have you had there? Because now everything's from either a cell phone or a video or email. Like, have you found any challenges there? And I want to dive into some of my personal stories about communication. And they're not the best story. I mean, they are good stories, but they're sort of embarrassing about like how messages do not get translated the same.
Yeah, like when something
digitally.
Yeah, like in a text message or an email, somebody can take it like too personally, or somebody may think like you're attacking them, or if you use a exclamation point or anything. I mean, you're shaking your head here, and you look like you know where I'm going with this. But yeah, I mean, when something is in writing and in an email or a chat, like people can take that as like you're rude or he's a jerk.
Yes, and that's transition to my personal story. That's exactly what happened to me. What was the quote? Wasn't present, wasn't clear, or didn't seem present, I think was the quote from the person who. It was interesting. So this happened a few times. Not to digress, but communication. We're going digital. We're going through Zoom. And then you're having Zoom calls and people are on video. So now we're just audio, and it's like being on the phone, and it's the communication both internally and externally. It's really shifting. And I think this is going to be a semi-permanent thing in a lot of professionals' careers. For those who decide that, hey, I'm going to stay home, which a lot of people are. I think my fiance, because she's technically high risk, it's likely going to be a permanent thing. We're working from home, and we'll eventually go into some of the topics about working at home with a significant other, because there's certainly challenges there. But communication, which to me was the number one difficult barrier, and just because of my personal work style. So the matrix that I put it on is perception versus reality and tone of voice. And that we struggle. We know that email doesn't always set the tone, and that's something. But now, since we have Slack now, and like messages are now instant versus email, which for me, email is blocked. Like I check email only between X amount of time a day, twice a day, which is a tip that you might want to use. I think that's a workflow tip that's not necessarily related to work from home, but the perception versus reality, and all these messages are flying, and you have Zoom calls, and there's this happening, and nobody really knows what's happening unless they know. And the first one was around Slack, which can be applied to email as well. A colleague of mine, I'm a very direct person. I show up at work to get work done. It's not like I'm a mean person, but I don't want to send smiley faces on Slack and put exclamation points. I'm like, somebody said, hey, I need you to do this, this, and this. I want to respond with, unless I have questions, I'm going to go, okay, I will do that. Very cut and dry. Because the more time I'm going back and forth on Slack and drawing things out, that's time that's taken away from my efficient block schedule, as I like to call it, which is what I want to call it. And the perception there, instead of...
That's back to the get shit done. What was it called?
Get shit done. GSD mode. So on Slack, I would just put the acronym that we would use at Acceleration Farm is GSD. And that means don't bother me. But the perception, so in this particular case, it was perceived as I wasn't clear and present. I wasn't committed, or I wasn't passionate about it, or I wasn't fired.
It was the exact opposite.
Yeah, they took it as negative. Like, oh, Jeff doesn't seem like he's into this. Like he seems very negative about what I told him he had to do. And I heard this not from them. I heard it from, they told my boss. Then my boss came back to me, which was like, oh man. I'm like, am I, maybe it's the beard thing? And maybe they didn't come to me direct and say, hey, like, I don't feel like you're really into this. I feel like you were just not passionate about it. You weren't committed. And I was like, I told my boss, I'm like, we got to pump the brake. We have to get on a phone call here. And we have to get everyone in the same Zoom line or the same room. And I said, hey, I'm just very direct. I'm sorry if that came off negative or negatively, but that's just how I communicate via Slack. That's just who I am. I'm in it to win it. Like, I'm dedicated to what you told me. Yeah. I'm like, I already got the stuff done. Like, it's already done.
Yeah.
And then I made it. And here's the tip to take, the key piece to take out of this is that you need to set the expectation. You need to have just a level set. So we would do a lot of account transitions. We would do a lot of personnel transitions. So things get moved around when you're in a client, like managing a book of business. People get promoted, then you get a new boss, or this goes back and forth. So over the course of the 2.5 years I was at Acceleration Partners, I had 5 different I reported into 5 different people. And I found that the best way, and this can be applied to anyone, even if it's a new teammate, especially new teammates when you're working laterally like that, get on a call with them and say, hey, I just want to let you know, like, just give them a download on you, like your communication style. Let them like see your mannerisms and say, hey, by the way, I just want to let you know that I might come off a little bit direct on Slack. It's not you. It's me. That's just who I am. Like, I like to separate. I mean, I do like to have fun conversations at work and do that kind of thing, but just letting you know that it's not that I hate you. It's just, I'm just going to be super direct. And I found that setting that expectation up front, especially with my manager, one of the managers who I worked with, who I've had an incredible working relationship with all my managers at Acceleration Partners, but one in particular, we had the same situation where I didn't level set those expectations, and it happened again. And that was really the key moment where I'm like, I really need to be dedicated to just get to know them as a person and say, hey, here's some of the nuances of how I work and why it might be perceived as this, but I just want to let you know the reality is that I'm in it to win it. I'm dedicated. And that, you know what, just having that conversation right up front, the working relationship literally made a complete 360, complete turn, and it was all positive from there moving
just
forward.
From giving that like right up front and honest, like, hey, this is what it is.
Yes. And that kind of segues into video as well. You don't think this, but when you're on a Zoom call, even if it's 100 people, there's people watching you. There's people going through the video, seeing what everyone's doing. Like, I've done it before. You're like, oh, I wonder what they're doing.
Yeah, look at this guy.
And you don't think people are watching because they're like, oh, it's a Zoom call. It doesn't matter. But they're like, oh, why is he on his couch? Oh, why is he in bed on a Zoom call with this client? Why is his dog in the background and licking his ear? And this is a personal story of mine. You don't realize how people notice everything. Or like, why is he always wearing a hat during client calls? It depends on the client. And that's where you set the expectations with clients too. Or you have those conversations with your boss and say, hey, what is acceptable on Zoom? Like, draw the boundaries and know them. But we had a consultant come in and talk about presentation on Zoom specifically.
Wow. This is serious.
And yeah, it is serious. And people don't understand. I mean, I'm not saying everyone doesn't, but if you're just saying, oh, I'm on Zoom call, it's going to be expected that it might be a little hectic, or my backdrop might be just nothing, or my lighting might be terrible. But you only get one chance to make a first impression. And if your first impression is you wearing a hat in a dark room and nobody can see your Zoom background, all of a sudden you're that guy who's like doing Zoom calls from his basement. And that's
you're that weird guy.
You're that weird guy. Or like, for me, you're the guy with the giant beard that doesn't fit in the frame. It doesn't fit in a Zoom call frame. But people, like, I own that. But like, my background, I have a clean background. I have good lighting. Like, the rest of the background makes sense.
Mhm.
Or I'm wearing like a dress shirt. Even if I'm wearing gym shorts or something like that, like I have a dress shirt on. Like that presentation, especially for first meetings with clients or like a new team member, you really want to have that first impression, the precedent be sent there. And everyone notice. If you think for a second that somebody doesn't notice that you're itching your ear on Zoom, even if it's 50, 100 people on a call, like odds are like somebody just watched you pick your nose or your ear, or like they're watching you stuff
Yeah.
a cheeseburger at 10 a.m. and like, hey, we've been there before. Like you're struggling to get through lunch. Turn off your video if it's a big call. It depends on what company you work for. Acceleration Partners is very strict about video. I would message my boss, hey, just letting you know, like things are hectic in my house right now. Like it's crazy. I need to go off video for this call. Is that okay? And we talk about the videos going on and off, and people don't think you notice that, but it's one of the most distracting
Yeah, when
things you
somebody
can
turns
do.
it on and off.
If you're going on and off and on and off,
and it's like, why does he keep doing that?
you know what? It came full circle. It was during a meeting. Things got hectic. It just happened out of the blue. Things happen. Like all of a sudden there's somebody knocking at my door. It's FedEx. Like, why don't they just leave the package? They're knocking because I need a signature. It's in the middle of a client call. Like things get hectic, but you don't think people are noticing. And then I heard from my boss that, hey, we shouldn't be going on and off video during the call. I'm like, you noticed that? It was only for like 5 seconds and there was 10 people on this call. Yeah, we noticed that. And it was a distraction. We don't want that with our clients on the call. And it's, hey, let's pump the brakes. FedEx guy I didn't know what was going on. It was an emergency. And then just people notice. So if you're doing it and they're not saying anything, they might be saying it to your boss, or they might be saying it to your colleague. Like Jeff's not, he's not clear and present. He's not here. He's off video. He's doing something different. He's distracted. So just keep that in mind, that people notice everything on video.
Yeah.
You don't think they do? They do. And I've been there and they've noticed it.
Yeah.
They've noticed me doing it. Or there's like a piece of salad or lettuce in your beard.
Yeah.
Like go check yourself in the mirror before a Zoom call. Like
yeah.
people will notice.
Totally. So, we talked a lot about, work and business and productivity and things like that. So I want to shift gears maybe just a little bit and like what else, what do you do outside of work? You brought these cornhole boards today. Tell me a little bit about those.
I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I have many hobbies. The cornhole boards are something that I started playing cornhole, really loved it. I'm like, I can't get myself a good set of boards unless I spend all this money. So my idea is like, oh, hey, let me spend more money on a bunch of tools and start building them. Then I'm like, wait, I have all these tools that I paid for, and now I'm just, how am I going to pay for these tools? And I'm like, oh, a friend of mine's like, hey, can you build me a set of cornhole boards? And I just stapled into me making a website. Say, hey, if you want to order a set of cornhole boards at coalcitycornhole.com. Sorry, guys, that was a plug. You can. And now, but I want to preface that I like to become super immersed into things, sometimes too much. And I'm currently in the state where I'm so busy with my new job that thankfully, I haven't had too many cornhole orders come through, but I am taking them, that I'm trying to make sure I'm not overworking myself, because it takes hours and you have the weekend time. But I find myself passionate about things, sometimes too much, to the point where like I go crazy. Like I immerse myself fully into things, and I like to keep myself busy outside of work, making wine, hanging out with my dog, which is a huge time. It's a lot of time and work to have a puppy, especially working from home. And it's great because I'm always home with the puppy, but for the first 3 months, it was crying in a crate while I'm working outside on patio furniture to prevent the dog from being on Zoom calls. But I'm going off on a tangent here, but I like to keep myself busy outside of work, especially working from home.
And you recently got engaged, right?
I did, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. If you're working from home and now there's no barriers there too, go out and do something. And maybe it's not the best time to do that, but go to the garage and start a hobby. I mean, YouTube's amazing. And that's where I go. I mean, I'll just find new hobbies to start. and I might only do them for a couple months, but you know what? It's something like, there's always something productive that comes out of it. Or like I learn a new skill. So down the road, like woodworking. With the cornhole boards, like I learned a lot about woodworking and planning and doing that kind of thing. And really now that I have these tools that I wondered why my dad would be so mad as a kid. Why didn't you put the tools away? I realized how expensive tools are. And I'm like, my dad has a lot of money worth of tools. And like, now I'm not, what am I to do with all this stuff?
Yeah.
And, but it's teaching me a lot of skills and skills that I can use further down the road when I buy a house. I'm not going to have to hire a carpenter or do things like that. And set yourself up for that kind of success, because that's money you're not going to have to spend. Or if you want to spend it, if you have it, spend it. But if you really want to learn those hard skills, that's kind of where I'm at outside of work. Just learning new skills, trying to DIY things, just trying to get prepared for the next step, which is eventually buying a house, and just keeping myself busy and getting out of the house. That's another thing. Get out of the house if you're working from home. Go for a walk. There's not many things we can do now, and some people don't feel safe being outside, so it's even harder. But get yourself outside the house or buy a video game system. I mean, I'm 32 years old and I still enjoy playing video games. I don't do it a lot anymore, but if you're bored and you want something to do, I mean, it's going to stimulate your mind and it's going to at least create a barrier. You're not going to feel like you're working. You're going to escape for a little bit.
Yeah. And what else? You brought a few books with you today. What's the significance with some of these?
So they had a very purposeful significance. And one thing for me, and we talked about this a little bit prior to hopping on the mic, reading. And I enjoy reading, but I find myself, I'll binge read. I'll read 2 books in a week, and I won't read for a year. And I'll do this. And it's hard to stay dedicated to reading. And the first book that I brought, it's called The Daily Stoic. And it's a collection of 366 meditations and wisdom. And they're just short quotes from a lot of philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. And there's one dedicated for each day. And what I like to do is you don't have to read 10 chapters of a book a day. You can open this book, you can read it, and you can read the quote, which is usually anywhere between 3 to 5 sentences. And there's a little bit of just annotation on it. And it's something to reflect on. So I open it in the morning. I'll be completely transparent. I don't do it every day, but I will, the days that I do, I open to the day in the calendar that lines up to that day, and I'll read it. It sits on my desk always. It's always on my desk in my workspace. It's always there, and it's always bookmarked. I open it up, I read it, reflect on it for 5 minutes, and I close it. So I'm not necessarily diving into this deep novel or this eccentric story, but it's something like it's stimulating your mind because it makes you think.
You're just getting a little tidbit.
Getting a little tidbit. And philosophy is interesting. And a lot of those philosophers, there's some things that I'm not really into, but the writings of Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, it's good reflections. It's something to reflect on daily. Good for mental health, which is another reason why I brought some of these books. The second one on mental health is The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. And she's since become a superstar on Netflix, I believe. And she organizes people's houses. But I know we've touched upon this a few times. Organization is a constant struggle. At least for me it is. But it's something when I am organized and my space is tidy, like you just feel like it just feels great.
Yeah.
And like if you open up the drawers of your kitchen and you find like you don't know where your spatula is and you're digging through the drawers, it's just that little bit of stress that you're adding on. And her philosophy in this book, and I've only read bits and pieces, I'm still working through it, is that breaking things down in the blocks and finding specific, like for me, the kitchen's like my space. I love to cook. So I like to use her philosophy and just, when you tidy things up and you have a clean kitchen, you know where your kitchen knife is. You know where your whisk is. You know where your bowls are. You know where everything's at. You don't have to look for it. You just have this sense of like completion. And keeping your desk tidy at home, same thing. Like you know where your notebook is. You know where your headphones are. Just having that space is not. You're not gonna have to think about it. It's gonna be second nature. And sort of keeping that same philosophy for everything in your house or in your life. If you know where it's at, you know where it's at. You're not looking for it. You're not wasting time. You're not being inefficient.
I tell my wife that all the time because I put things back in the same place. She laughs at me.
Did she ask you where it's at?
Well, no, it's just like when something goes missing, like I hate that, and the reason I hate it is because I'm a person that I always, everything has a home, I say.
Yes.
And I put everything back in its home when it's not being used. And yeah, we had a little laugh about that recently, actually, but I like to do that.
It's a great way it's a great way to organize things because you know where it's at.
Yeah, you know it's going to be there.
Yeah. And especially with the things you use a lot.
Right.
Like your keys, your wallet. Like my wallet and my keys go in the same spot every day.
Me too.
I mean, I found that you go from losing you're not looking for them. Maybe on occasion if like you're in a rush and you came home and you're like going to this and all of a sudden you fell out or whatever or dropped on the couch. But when it has a home, you know where it's at and you don't stress over it.
I can't wait for my wife to listen to this. She's going to punch me when she hears it. No, but no, seriously, I think it's good. Like I said, I everything has a home and I put it back and you know where it's at. You don't stress over it. You don't be like, oh my God, where did I put that? And then you're running around the house for 20 minutes.
Exactly. You're not wasting time. So 2 other books. I'm going to stay on this is more so mental and physical health, but I think this is a really inspirational book. It's not necessarily going to be for everyone. It's Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. David Goggins, if you don't know who he is, he was an ex-Navy SEAL. He was an ultra marathon runner. And I really don't want to give many details of the book away, but he's the king of persevering, like pig-headedness, toughness. And really, I find this book speaks in volumes to me because it not only shows, like, for me, physical, like I don't exercise as much as I want to. And you find that when you don't exercise, you become mentally stressed. When your mental health is declining, like things sort of spiral. And you take someone like David Goggins, who had himself, he wasn't physically fit, and then he got in great shape, and he failed out of SEAL school, and he eventually went through it, and he's at the most elite of everything. And then he was running 200-mile races, and then he got to the point where he was physically set, but his mental health wasn't there. He ended up almost dying, and he didn't know why. He just felt like his body was dying, and he ended up going and stretching. He found that the stress and the tension, which build up so much. And I relate to this because I deal with a lot of stress and tension, and I find that when that happens, like my mental health isn't there, and like I get anxious, or like I just find lack of motivation. And I go back to this book because this guy's an inspiration. If you don't know much about him, I suggest looking at some of the videos, inspirational videos he posts on Facebook, or read his Can't Hurt Me book. But it really shows you the power of the mind and the body and how they really interconnect, and that you can be the best, you can be an ultra marathon runner. That doesn't mean you're in a good spot or you're mentally healthy. And you really got to have that balance, and you really need to stretch. You really need to stretch your mind. You really need to like be in a good decompressed spot, especially in stressful times like COVID-19, where it's really easy to get into a dark spot. So great book. Couldn't recommend it enough. And the last one here is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This book is old, but it's one of those books that really doesn't go obsolete. And I'm really terrible at explaining books without giving away the entire premise of this book, but this was recommended.
So spoiler alert, or?
No, definitely no spoiler alert. But a friend of mine, Chris Nash, recommended this book, and he's like, this is the game changer for me of like around success and around just having that mindset, like mental health. This is the mental health book. This is both mental and physical. This is really like the mental health book around success. And that not just growing rich literally. Yes, it's called Think and Grow Rich, but it's not about money. Yes, money is the end game in a lot of things in life, which is, to me, not necessarily the best way to think. But this is about becoming rich in relationships, rich in yourself, and rich in that network that you have, and really growing. Like, you become rich with people and rich with relationships. And this is like the kickoff point to me. I'm planning on rereading this because I enjoyed it that much. And like I said, I'm not the best at describing books without giving away the entire plot point, But if you find, and for the entrepreneurial minded, this is a great book. If you find yourself, you're motivated to start a new business, or maybe you had that business plan that you haven't quite finished yet and you're just looking for that kickoff to really get inspired, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is my recommendation.
Cool. Love it. Awesome. And I want to circle back just a little bit, touch on one more thing from the beginning. You talked a little bit about, getting a job maybe outside the area, and you thought about leaving, but you didn't leave, and you stayed here. But my question is, why? And then the second part of the question is, what is your favorite thing about NEPA?
So why did I stay in NEPA? Cost of living. No, I'm just kidding. That was certainly a factor in my decision. I think about it all the time, and I've been all over the country. I've been to, I don't know, I think about 40 something states. I forget the exact number. I think I'm getting pretty close to all 50. It's going to happen soon. But I've been all over the country. I've seen it all. And I just think about it's like the ratio to like things I enjoy versus like practicality versus family. It's just like the matrix of everything seems to align very well in this area, that it's a beautiful area to live in. And you're really not that far removed from stuff. Like you're only a few hours from the city, a few hours from Philadelphia. You're a few hours from wine country, Niagara Falls, the ocean. You're in a pretty geographically accessible area. And during the fall, it's beautiful here. Like right now, like you go out and look at the leaves, like it's beautiful. I'm not a big fan of snow anymore, as I sort of got out of skiing in my life, but it's a beautiful area. There's nature. I love nature. I love being out and I love hiking. I mean, that's like one of my favorite things to do in the world is go hiking. And this is a beautiful place. You have mountains. Can't really hike without mountains unless you want to walk on a flat ground. I mean, you need mountains to hike. Yeah, there's beautiful mountains out west, but it's only a plane ticket away or a road trip away. And then my family's here, and I'm very close to my family. I'm also very independent. So I mean, that's not something that's a necessity for me. I can move out to Colorado or to Florida or to California and be fine. Like communicate with my parents. I can talk over the phone. But now I have my fiance. She's the opposite. She likes to be close to family. So that's another deciding factor. I mean, it's no longer me, it's we. And that was another big factor. And I mean, everything seems to align with where I want to be. And then in terms of like fiscal and financially, and one thing with COVID-19 and working from home, it's creating a shift where you're going to be able to work for a New York City or a Santa Barbara company and earn a Santa Barbara, New York City salary from your home and anywhere.
In Wilkes-barre.
Or
Kingston.
Yeah. And that's the reality of things. Like that's going to be the next reality, because there's going to be companies that aren't going to go back. Overhead for an office. I mean, what did Apple spend $5 billion on an office? I think it was $5 billion or something.
That's crazy.
I hope it's billion. Yeah, it had to be $5 billion.
Had to be. Yeah.
And I did like a million. I'm still doing a triple take at that number.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people who are not going to want to go back because of fear, which is fine. That's justified. If you're afraid to go back, I mean, you need to have that conversation with your boss. But there are opportunities to be able to stay close to your family and to your area and your friends if that's what you want. Like I think I've made it past the point where I'm no longer like soul searching for. I've kind of made it past that point where I can care less anymore if I go to California for a couple of years and work for a tech company, because I'm working for a big tech company from basically my couch.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of challenges there, but I don't really have to go out and soul search anymore, which I could just go visit. I have friends out there. I mean, I don't need to do that anymore. I'm past that point. So, and my favorite part about NEPA is fall, is now. Like, it's just the smell. And I mean, maybe because I'm a fall baby and just maybe that's just like ingrained. But I just love the fact that like there's so many beautiful things in Pennsylvania and like being out in nature. That's my favorite thing. Like going, like foraging for mushrooms, going, all that kind of stuff, like hiking, going. I mean, I don't do too much hunting anymore, but if you like going hunting and shooting guns, like that's something you can do in Pennsylvania. You can't do that in California or some other states. It's just not a thing. So, I mean, I'm very in tune with nature, and I think that's where I want to stay.
Cool. Nice. And back to the cornhole boards, coalcitycornhole.com.
Yes.
I get that right?
Yes, you got it right.
So still taking some orders if anyone's interested.
Yes, yes, I will be taking orders. You can email me via the contact form there. You can order right through the site if you have questions. I'm working from home. I carve out about 20 minutes every morning to check my cornhole order email. So
was that an intentional pun or carve out?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
It's pretty good then.
Pun not intended.
Yeah. I guess we'll kind of wrap it up there. I mean, thanks again for coming on and sharing your work from home playbook. And,
thanks for having me. I feel like I'm glad you brought me in because I feel like I'm coming behind some big hitters. We got Big League Chew and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come on here and get out of my comfort zone, which is something that I haven't been able to do as much lately. I just been stuck I have my routine and my blocked off calendar, and I really appreciate the opportunity, Bill. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope that there were some tidbits and some tools and tricks that people can take away from this. And if there's anything that, if there's any way for me to keep the line of communication open, I'm not sure if there's a contact for the podcast or if there's any questions that people have.
Yeah.
I'm an open book, so I'm willing to pass along anything.
Cool.
Any information, whatever anyone needs.
Awesome.
I just really want people to feel safe and comfortable working from home and know that like this is tomorrow. Yeah. This isn't a temporary thing. I mean, there's some serious, permanent, like economical and there's a lot of shifts that are happening that aren't going to change. So, I mean, if you're not prepared, things are going to start moving at light speed, especially moving into the spring and next year. You got to be prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared to be stuck at home working, and which is a good thing. It's a great thing. And just be prepared for it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I definitely think people listening are going to learn a lot about this, whether you're working from home now or not. I mean, I don't work from home a lot, but I've already taken some, information, and I'm probably going to change a few things up in my routine, even though I work in an office. I mean, but I certainly learned a whole lot today, and I'm glad you came on, and it was a great experience to learn a little bit more about you and the whole work from home atmosphere.
Well, like I said, appreciate it, Bill. I'm pretty pumped that you had me on here, and I'm glad. I mean, this is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't want to say your last name wrong.
Kátra.
I was going to say, I go back and forth between Kátra and Kátra.
A fun snippet, only 2 people have ever gotten it right. Ever.
Yeah.
I remember it because there's only been 2.
If you asked me, I would have said Kátra. Did I say Kátra at first, or did I?
I believe you have. So you'd be number 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I get it. There's no accent over it. So I just put the accent. I just made that up.
Did you make that up?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask because I see the accent.
Yeah. Once I put the accent, people were like, oh, Kátra. I'm like, it took a squiggly line over the letter to make it make sense. But you know what it does.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks again, Jeff Kátra, for joining me on another episode of the On the Stacks podcast. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you so much.
If you'd like to learn more about the On the Stacks podcast, be sure to search the hashtag On the Stacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll catch you next time on the Stacks.